thought this was just a very standard song about love, but oops, it's about infidelity. Hey guys, it's Nicole. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. Thank you guys for letting me take that little break after Vlogmas. It was much needed. If you're wondering about my tooth, I still haven't gotten into the dentist because he canceled on me, but what can you do? Next week, hopefully I'll know more. Today I'm going to be doing a full album lyrical analysis slash interpretation slash breakdown, explanation, whatever you want to call it, over the Evermore album by Taylor Swift that you guys have been asking for. I'll also be doing a review of Evermore later this month, so if that sounds interesting to you, make sure to subscribe and turn the little bell icon on so that you get notified when that comes out. And let's just get into it because these analyses tend to be long. This song feels a little bit like Cardigan to me because it's kind of vague. It's definitely a romantic song like Cardigan was. This one has undertones of tumultuousness. I mean, so did Cardigan if you really look at it, like Peter losing Wendy and everything. But the lines that I noticed that make their relationship sound kind of unsteady is lines like, the more that you say, the less I know, there's some uncertainty there, and wreck my plans. It sounds like the beginning of a relationship where people are kind of making sacrifices for each other. She talks about trains and ships, which are recurring themes on the entire album. And I noticed the line, I come back stronger than a 90s trend, sounds like a reference to her 2017 comeback with Reputation and how successful that was. And I think the line, if it was an open shut case, I never would have known from that look on your face, means he's confusing her, and if things were straightforward, she wouldn't be able to tell from his poker face. And that's about all I've got from this song. I think the meaning is pretty transparent while it is like rocky at the same time. I don't know. I think it's definitely a love song that's also kind of tumultuous. That's the basic idea I'm getting. I have to switch locations because it's just way too hot in here. Oh, this is cute. Solid white wall. I like that. Okay, so now that I'm hopefully not going to keep sweating, I really want to go into a lot of detail with this one, so it's going to be super long. If you want to skip ahead, I'll have timestamps down below. But the more I listened to this song, the more that I uncovered. If you watched my reaction, you'll see that I was a little bit confused. It's hard to understand off the first listen, but as a general blanket statement, it's about a rejected marriage proposal. I think this is very agreed upon. The opening line, you booked the night train for a reason, shows maybe the proposing party had a feeling his proposal would be rejected. I'm assuming he booked it ahead of time so that he could sit there in this hurt. Then the first chorus explains these champagne problems, which kind of means rich people problems, or problems that aren't real problems, which a lot of the time is the kind of stigma that's associated around mental health issues. You see this a lot with like the older generation and the younger one. They say like, oh, you're so depressed, like I fought in a war, just kind of diminishing the severity of those problems because of like them in relation to other kinds of problems. The second verse might also be a hint to him knowing he'd be rejected. Like his reason for telling his family was because he wanted them to be happy and for them to kind of reassure them through their behavior that a wedding was actually going to happen. Their confidence is being shown when his sister spends a whole bunch of money on a champagne bottle. Your sister splashed out on the bottle. So they're doing this to celebrate because they think a wedding's going to happen. The second chorus again mentions the word reason and how the rejecting party couldn't give a reason for saying no, and the proposing person had a speech planned for his wedding but ended up being speechless in more ways than one. So the bridge is the part I really want to talk about because it confused me for a little bit. A Midas touch is when everything you touch turns to gold, which sounds nice, but it makes things completely unusable. Taylor regularly compares relationships to cars. No, nothing good starts in a getaway car from getaway car. Remember when I pulled up and said get in the car from August? So the Chevy door could be an example of their relationship, but his Midas touch turns it to gold and renders it unusable. You can't drive a solid gold car. Therefore the relationship can't go anywhere. November Flush and Your Flannel Cure is about how maybe he gave her his jacket when it was cold. It was his cure for her for the November weather. Then it references mental illness with the next line. She shows some self-deprecating humor. He says this dorm was once a madhouse. She said, well, it's made for me. God damn it. Princess is peeing. I just can't film in this house. Was it a good pee? Oh my God. So this mental illness could be why she's rejecting the proposal possibly. And the next line is her thinking they won't use the word evergreen anymore because their friends won't come back together as they have, maybe like once a year for a reunion or something. Oh my God, Princess. Are you okay? Do you have kidney stones? The next line describes the pain people feel when they're like upset for the holidays, but people around them still have the nerve to celebrate. I love the next line because 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready, and 4 to go is an old children's rhyme, but she changes the end to I never was ready, so I watch you go. It's such a heartbreaking line. And the next line shows that maybe she was unsure if she wanted to get married or not, but she didn't know until he was actually proposing. And the next line can be seen as a manifestation of her possibly severe anxiety with thinking everyone's going to be talking about their rejection and calling her fucked in the head. And the last line of the bridge talks about a tapestry, which other than the dorm that's mentioned earlier, further reinstates that this song is the one that's detailing the experience of the 2 college sweethearts that Taylor mentioned that she did write about, because everyone's got some sort of tapestry in their college dorm or apartment. I haven't seen anyone else pick up on this. This was actually an idea that my mom had, but like if you look in some of my videos, I myself have a little beach tapestry behind me over my bed. It's just what we do. And the last line of the song is you won't remember all my champagne problems, because she's trying to convince herself he will forget her and it will be fine. I think she views herself as a burden, which kind of goes into the last conversation I want to have about this song. Okay, so at first I saw myself relating to this song because I don't want to get married. It's just not something I see myself doing. And I specifically related to the line, what a shame she's fucked in the head, they said, because I live in the South and people just kind of like judge me for that. A lot of the people I went to high school with have already had like 3 kids and are like married. That's just not my thing. So I'm sometimes viewed as insane, even though I'm not. I've dealt with my own minor issues with mental health, but basically what I'm getting at is correlation doesn't equal causation. I think the character in Champagne Problems genuinely might want to get married. I think she really wanted to do it, but she sees herself as a burden. She's like the opposite of the character in Peace, who asks essentially, hey, I want to stay, but will it be enough if I can't give you peace? And whether that's because of fame or mental illness or whatever it may be, she's putting that decision like in her lover's hands, while the Champagne Problems girl, she's running. And we don't know the severity of her mental illness, like possibly she could have to be confined to a mental facility at some points in her life. But honestly, if she loves this guy, like that's why the song is so sad. And if she wants him, like she should leave that up to him if he wants to like quote unquote deal with that, I guess. Because it can be rough, but if someone is like fine with accepting your baggage and you genuinely want them to, like I think you should leave that decision up to them. I don't know, I guess what I'm saying is I see people trying to relate to this song because it is beautiful, but I see it more with girls who are a lot like myself who just don't want to get married and they're relating to the what a shame she's fucked in the head line. Like they're not calling her fucked in the head for not wanting to get married. This is so many times of cursing. They're calling her that because of the illusion that she like belongs in a madhouse, that she like has mental illness, not the fact that she doesn't want to get married. And it's just so sad. I wish there was just some kind of communication going on there between these two. And I think there would be if she genuinely knew, like from the beginning of the relationship, that she didn't want marriage out of it. Like I am very upfront with people about that. But I think she just like thinks so low of herself that once the opportunity arises, she can't like get herself to do it or like place the burden she sees as herself onto somebody else, even if they're like on their knees asking for it. I'm just going to end that here. Champagne Problems is a really loaded song and this is already getting too long. So to sum it up, I think this song is going to go down like all too well. This song has more ship references. At first I thought this song was about a jealous rage with like a current lover, kind of with the line, I don't like anticipating my face in a red flush. I was seeing that as her getting angry and like trying not to slip into that blind rage of jealousy, but I'm pretty sure it's about like daydreaming about somebody, like a crush who is not yours at all. And the intro is sung, it's so beautifully. It's like she's about to slip into this daydream and then the chorus comes in and the beat is very grounding and it keeps her on the ground and she sings like, but I don't like a gold rush. I don't like slipping into this daydream. She compares pursuing this person to the gold rush because the stakes are so high, it's very competitive, like the California gold rush was. She's thinking like everybody is in love with this person, so what chance do I stand? In the first verse, she describes a very detailed daydream of her walking across the wooden floor with her Eagles t-shirt hanging from the door. She's doing the daydreaming even though she doesn't want to. And Eagles could either refer to the rock band or it could be the Philadelphia Eagles from her home state. She wore one of those jerseys back on the Speak Now tour. This song has great alliteration, consonants, and assonance. If you want to hear more about that, you can watch my video on that up here. She daydreams dreams of going to dinner parties with him and wandering around this coastal town and having this love that's just absolutely perfect, which is impossible. And the last refrain changes it to, the coastal town we never found will never see a love as pure as it, because it will never be. She pulls herself out of this daydream once and for all with saying she almost jumps in again, but keyword is almost. I think this is the response song to Dorothea. It's written from Dorothea's perspective. It's about coming back to your hometown for the holidays and having this fling with your old romance. I think the first verse is a bit guarded. She's saying, look, I know I hurt you. I don't even want to know what you've been doing while I was gone. No need to make me jealous with it. I felt a chill when I passed you, and you may not be into this, but if you want to call it even and just put the past behind us, we can have fun for the weekend. She says the road not taken looks real good now and always leads to him and her hometown. She's basically saying she's done essentially all she wants to do in life, but the one avenue she hasn't explored is like him. It'll always be like the unknown for her, I guess. And the second verse talks about the school that used to be theirs, which I guess is the same school that James and Betty and Inez went to, which back to the whole like love triangle from folklore. This further confirms that James and Betty did not grow up in New York. They talk about the High Line and Cardigan. So that leads me to believe they grew up in Tupelo with Dorothea and the unnamed guy. And James and Betty moved to New York. Like, this is just further proof that Betty took him back because they grew up in Tupelo. So they get back together and then they moved to New York together, and the relationship did continue, like Taylor did confirm, and like I anticipated it did in my Does Betty Take James Back video, so that's pretty cool. There's just more proof that I was right, and of course like that feels good, you know what I mean? The holidays linger like bad perfume, and she ran from it and escaped. I think she's maybe calling her hometown like kind of tacky for being so festive. Like, I don't know, I think smaller towns can definitely, there's a huge sense of community. Like when you think about someplace like LA or just a huge city, there's not that like community sense of festivity, so she might be calling her hometown kind of tacky for this. And she's almost apologizing for escaping and leaving him, and she's proposing again that they spend time together for old time's sake. And the "we could just ride around" line that appears in the second chorus hits so close to home. As someone who grew up in a small town, this is what I did with too many boys. That's definitely what happens in a small town in the South. A for accuracy, Taylor Swift. The bridge sounds like she's daring him to ask her to stay there permanently, and it sounds like she thinks she'll be rejected. She says she's breaking her own heart, not his, by leaving after the holidays are over. I don't know, I really like the concept of Dorothea and how she's this like, she made it out of her hometown and she's like very successful in LA and probably pursuing acting. But she's still, I don't know, she seems very down to earth, and like she's anxious over this guy rejecting her who's like her small town boyfriend who, I don't know, I feel like some people might be like, oh, you'd be so lucky to have me back, you know what I mean? So interesting character that she's creating there with Dorothea. I think this song is based off the movie Rebecca. It's also a book, but Taylor mentioned it in an interview. It's on Netflix if you want to watch it. The first verse explains all the things she watches her lover doing. She notices absolutely everything he does or doesn't do, and he doesn't pay any attention to her. We find out later. She sounds so childlike with the lines, "Wait by the door like I'm just a kid, use my best colors for your portrait." That's a line that children say, like, I used all my best colors. I hate the line, "If it's all in my head, tell me now, tell me I've got it wrong somehow." Like, do not let him talk you out of the feelings you're feeling. Your feelings are valid, first of all. The indiscretions mentioned in the second verse could be either cheating or him being like rude to her. I feel like that's more what it is, because she's painting this picture of him being like disrespectful. Essentially, I think it's kind of more loaded if he's also cheating. It's just a wreck. I don't know, I think it's more about like him making hurtful jokes towards her that aren't funny, and she acts lighthearted about it anyways. And the bridge asks, where was she in his life while he was being successful and having his own life? She wonders where the man she knew is. Maybe he's changed since their relationship started, but it's more in behavior. I don't think he's cheating, because that would be way too obvious. I think the character is really second guessing herself, because it's just more about his, I don't know, the tone of what he's saying and like just kind of his behavior. She says she does so much for him, but he never returns the favor, and she feels like she takes up too much space or time, and he thinks everything is fine, and she wonders how he would react if she left. One of the final lines, "Believe me, I could do it," sounds more like she's trying to convince herself than him, and it makes me so sad. I just want to give her a hug. This song is pretty self-explanatory. There's some murdering going on. We all love it. We love to see it. So I'm just gonna point out interesting things I noticed. The chorus applies to 3 different situations. I love when Taylor does this. The first one being Estee's husband cheating on her. She says, "No body, no crime," meaning if she hasn't seen the mistress with her own 2 eyes, there's no crime committed there. She can't prove that it's going on, so until she sees it, nothing is going on. In the second verse, Taylor notices Estee's husband got some brand new tires, possibly with life insurance money, after Estee goes missing, but that killing for life insurance is gonna come back and bite him in the ass. The tire line could also suggest Estee slashing his tires for cheating on her. I really like the bridge because it feels like a Bailey Sarian video, if you watch her, where she tells you exactly how the crime was committed. Love that, super suspicious. She essentially says it was a bloody end and she sunk his body in the water because this girl can clean a house and drive a boat. And if you didn't notice, now the phrase, no body, no crime, takes on a different meaning from finding the physical proof of the mistress that it did in the first verse into finding the cheating ass, killing ass husband's body. Bada bing, bada boom, there's no body, no crime explained. This is a super optimistic song about a divorce. She says when she's above the trees, she'll be able to see the forest for the trees and see it for what it is, and not just the awful downfall that she's experiencing in the moment. I was dancing when the music stopped shows the disbelief of her thinking everything was fine, and she has to suddenly reinvent herself and learn how to just be on her own and move on when she thought the relationship was great. The post-chorus shows a lot of maturity in saying he may be haunted by the look in her eyes that would have loved him for her whole life. But ultimately, she's wishing he does find happiness without her. In the second verse, she wonders where it all went so wrong. Then she says, I hope your new girl will be a fool who replaces me. And then she's like, oh, wait, no, oh my God, I didn't mean that. I'm sorry, that was so mean. Relatable. It's a very human song. Also, there's a lot of Gatsby references in this song with Green Light of Forgiveness and I hope she'll be a beautiful fool. In the bridge, I guess she says the marriage lasted for 7 years and now here's the price she pays for that. She talks about how awful it is to be with someone every night and now it's all cold formalities, like they never even knew each other at all. She says he's a good man though, there's no resentment, and no one ever talked about a divorce that could end so amicably. The third verse explains when this is over, when she's above the trees, she'll be okay, but as of right now, she's crying bitter tears on the pillow he used to sleep on. She's salty, she gave him the best she had, and now he just wants forgiveness, which she says she will give him when she's okay. I think this is the sister song to 'Tis the Damn Season. The narrator is wondering if Dorothea ever thinks about him. Making a lark in the first verse is British slang for having fun. They're making the best of the misery. He says she has these flashy friends and he sees her on a tiny screen, maybe on movies or shows. It made me think of like the silver screen being like, I think that's TV shows, but the big screen is like movies. So maybe she's worked her way up just to like TV shows or like smaller parts. I'm not sure exactly what it means. Then he says their hometown is the same as it ever was and she won't like it, but it's never too late to come home and be with him. In the post-chorus, he says she's a queen selling dreams, makeup, and magazines, and he would buy these from her. Hell yeah, men can wear makeup. This character is also theorized to be based off of Selena Gomez, like her makeup line Rare. I mean, I could see these like pretend characters being based off of real people. In the second verse, he says he remembers when they skipped the prom to piss off her mom because she wanted Dorothea to go, and now she's this shiny celebrity, and he wonders if she's the same soul he knew. Like, I don't know, I'm imagining her kind of growing up with him and being kind of tomboyish, but now she's like this glamorous celebrity. He says he'll never know, and she's going to go on with the show, both literally and figuratively. I think this song is sad as hell. In fact, I think the male character dies. First verse is the end of a relationship. She's saying if she doesn't have him, who does she even have? And she's asking all these questions. And she compares Coney Island to their relationship, wondering where the magic went, and she apologizes for not giving him adequate attention. Is this the guy from Tolerate It? The second verse is also full of questions that are pounding Matt Beringer, his head. He's asking for forgiveness. Then they compare their relationship to a mall before the internet with all of the excitement and mischief. They apologize for not getting the other a ring, which would be a symbol of their love. I love giving gifts to people who mean a lot to me so they have something like physical to remind them of the good time we had. The bridge asks, did I leave you hanging every single day where the other person was waiting? The way that's sung is so heartbreaking to me. It's like when you don't realize someone is waiting for you or feels strongly about you and you're not able to return those feelings because you just don't realize it's happening until it's too late. I've also read a theory that each line in the bridge could represent a different ex of Taylor's, with a happy birthday line referencing Jake, who didn't show up to her birthday party in The Moment I Knew, John, who painted her blue skies gray in Dear John, Harry, who got in a wreck with her in Out of the Woods, and Calvin not thanking her at some awards acceptance speech, but hear me out. I think in the context of this song, the male character passed away from the accident before the female character had a chance to prioritize him. And she's kicking herself because even as she walks up to the podium at his funeral to like speak at his funeral, she still like forgets to say his name. Like if she was overcome with emotion and just started speaking and didn't even mention his name, it just makes the song even more sad to me. It's just about a lot of missed opportunities, I think. I don't know, I think there's a moral of tell the people you love that you love them before it's too late. I thought this was just a very standard song about love, but oops, it's about infidelity. The first verse is romanticizing the shit out of it. She says she met him in an in-between state of being, where the spirit meets the bones, in a faith-forgotten land that's tarnished, but grand at the same time. She compares the relationship to Ivy in the chorus. You botanists probably know more than me, but Ivy, I guess, can absolutely destroy a house over time, kind of as nature reclaims it. But if her marriage is toxic and the house like represents the marriage, that might be what she wants. And she throws up her hands and says she can't stop it, but maybe she doesn't even want to. In the second verse, she says she wants to know what it is that makes him want to be with her, like what makes you want to be magnificently cursed. So even though he can't have her fully. Then she contrasts, but it's been promised to another, that she said in the chorus, with he wants what's only yours, which she says about her husband. Whose are you, Ivy girl? Pick. Then the third verse basically describes them sneaking around, getting an adrenaline rush from it all. And then she says she doesn't care how it ends. She's going to just like sit and keep doing it and drink her husband's wine. This leads me to believe there's like real bitterness there towards her husband, and she wants to use this lover kind of as a getaway car to not only cheat on him, but to drink his wine. Ivy girl has a grudge. Then the bridge compares the love to a fire or a war and blames the lover for starting it. Sure, Ivy girl. First, I want to say this song reminds me of Jack and Rose, and that makes me cry. At first, I didn't realize it was about two con artists falling in love. The lines, now I know I'm never gonna love again, perched in the dark, telling all the rich folks anything they want to hear. Jack went to that dinner in first class and charmed everyone. He was very charismatic. Also, Rose did the same thing. She got engaged to Cal because her and her mother were losing money. Like, it wasn't necessarily a con, but there was a reason she was marrying rich. So Rose essentially told Cal what he wanted to hear in order to have that benefit. Never thought I'd meet you here. We could be the way forward, and I know I'll pay for it, because she ended up losing him. The old men that I swindled really did believe I was the one. Cal, again, but then she spit in his face. The ladies lunching have their stories about when you pass through town. Jack was literally drawing naked French girls. Anyway, let's get into a bit of an actual analysis. The line, the tennis court was covered up with some tent-like thing, it's a little weird. That's a strange line. Something, I'm still trying to figure that one out. I don't know if she just couldn't find the words exactly. It was covered up with this thing. Usually Taylor Swift has all the words. I think the narrator, whoever it's based on or whoever it is, she's afraid the love will end badly because she knows she'll pay for it. And she says they have eyes full of stars, which is like they're dreaming of stars and riches. There's a line in verse 4 that says he hangs from her lips like the gardens of Babylon. This references the ambiguity, there's always some word I can't pronounce in one of my videos, ambiguity of their relationship, because I don't believe it was ever confirmed if the Gardens of Babylon ever existed. It's one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world. Could have been real, might have not been. Forever is the Sweetest Con is also a really clever tie-in at the end there. She found something better than just continuing to scam people and not falling in love. It's a cute song, but if it's Jack and Rose, I'm gonna sit and cry about it. She paints this really detailed picture in the first verse where she's essentially getting mugged, and she says the battle picked her. She's in an alley surrounded on all sides. She's being mugged, and her lover, probably Joe, walked right by. I see this all happening in my head in like a comic style. I think all of this is a reference to the 2016 issues she experienced when everyone hated her, but she did find Joe that year. She says, if the shoe fits, walk in it till your high heels break. This could mean like she played the role of the snake in Reputation until that no longer fit her anymore, because it wasn't actually her. She was just, people believed the shoe fit for her. They were like, well, if you're a snake, and then she just like owned it in a way, but it wasn't really her. So she played it until she couldn't anymore. The chorus is incredibly revealing. She talks more about her downfall, and then she clung to the nearest lips, but it was the wrong guy. Getaway car. Tom Hiddleston. But now she's all about Joe. The second verse says she feels like people only ever want her after their time with her is over. She looked better in the rear view. She describes this very detailed picture of her throwing her sword into the bushes and knocking on Joe's door. I think this represents like how she kind of fought back for a little while, but then she just disappeared. She says if it were to happen again, like if her relationship were to be overexposed in the media, how it did with past relationships that didn't end well, she would be ready for it and just better prepared with this relationship. The bridge is really cute because it says there's no more tug of war, no more keeping score, basically no more playing cat and mouse. Like they're just keeping each other warm. They're secure in their relationship instead of like making sure not to text back too fast. Verse 3 is interesting because I think she's referencing Kanye's recent downfall. Before she could even make her next move, she didn't even have to lift a finger. And then she's like, and that doesn't matter because Joe is so rare and this shoe fits and it will always fit. It's very cute romantic stuff and it wraps up nicely with, long story short, I survived. This isn't supposed to be my review, so I'm trying to keep my opinions out of it. The review is coming later this month. But this song is genius. I can't not say that. Just the way it's written, the verses detail what I think is the advice her grandmother gave her. And the pre-chorus is like a daydream, similar to what's happening in Gold Rush. And then she could almost hear her grandmother talking to her, listening to her, singing to her, and we actually hear what Taylor hears with her grandma's backup vocals. And that just adds so much to the realism because it's her grandmother's exact voice. We're hearing exactly what Taylor hears when she's daydreaming about her grandma singing to her. And then she sings what died didn't stay dead. And that's because Taylor has these pieces of advice from her grandmother, which she's probably implementing into her own life. So her spirit and behavior kind of lives on through Taylor because she's bringing those aspects of her to life through her own behavior. The bridge is probably the most heartbreaking part. It details swimming in the autumn when it's chilly. Taylor would complain, but it seemed her grandmother loved it because she would swim past where Taylor's and probably her brother's feet could touch. She did say our. She said our feet could touch. So I think this is a flashback to her and her brother swimming with their grandma. I'm so sad. I'm not okay. She says she complained, but she should have been asking questions instead. And this is probably the most heartbreaking idea in this song because people always tell you to talk to your grandparents and ask them questions because once they're gone, there are things you'll never know. And she wishes she would have saved all her signed grocery receipts because pieces of this person are hard to come by now. And Taylor also pursued music like her grandmother did. So she says any closets of forgotten dreams that her grandmother had, anything concerning music, Taylor is now trying to fulfill all of those. And this is just a really deep and personal song. This has to be about Big Machine. I think the super uncomfortable percussion is supposed to sound like a big machine breaking down. And I suspected this percussion meant something in my reaction, but I didn't know what yet. I'll play the clip if I have it. But the drums are I'm just confused. I wonder what that means. It's gotta mean something. Gears were turning, and I was right. The first verse says, the shape of your name still spells out pain. This sounds like when she said anytime the name Scooter Braun escaped her lips to Scott, she would be crying, just that same kind of visual idea. But now it's turned over to Scott because of his betrayal. And the chorus sounds like she sees him in person after he sends her this weird letter and she's like, yes, I got your letter. Yes, I'm doing better. Are you done now? Can I leave? And she says she doesn't need weird letters like that. I also noticed in the physical copy of the CD, the little booklet has closure written in quotation marks, your closure. I don't need your closure. I don't know, it's just sarcastic. I love it. It's so annoying when there's someone in your life who wrongs you and then they act like nothing is wrong and they try to slip back into your life periodically. In the second verse, she says she feels like he's treating her like some situation that needs handling and he's trying to smooth it over. And she's angry, but he continues to make amends and is probably trying to make it out like she's being dramatic. She references being smoothed over again with staying friends would iron it out so nice. And the way she sings it is there's just a lot of sass. So she sings that in the bridge when she describes herself as a wrinkle in his new life. So wrinkle in your new life, I think that references, she's been a huge inconvenience to Scott because of her re-recordings. And she has good reason. She doesn't want to go quietly, which is in My Tears Ricochet, I didn't have it in myself to go with Grace. She says he reaches for her between this sea, this divide that he put in between them. So it's completely unneeded that he's doing this because he's the one who ruined it. God, I don't even know Scott, but I feel like I know Scott after this. I've met Scotts before. They hurt you and then 3 months later they DM you everything's fine. Oh my God, they're the human version of a headache. The first verse sounds like quarantine. Around July, when it started getting all right, I'm over it. It became a bit, I think, for people's mental health. The things that were going on in Minneapolis and just all of, I don't know, the state of the world got really bad. It was kind of bad, but we had Tiger King and things were fun and weird in March to probably about July is when it started hitting the fan. I think people were pretty over it. So she's saying, I've been down since July, gray November. And I think the gray November is like people not being able to see their families for Thanksgiving. With the holidays, it just sucked. I mean, that's the time when you're supposed to be able to gather. Motion capture put me in a bad light. Sounds like a reference to the Cats movie. I don't think any of them anticipated that was what it was going to be like. Like the actors, I mean, they weren't told. This song could also be about her downfall of 2016. I think the timeline also matches up with that, like July to November. Especially I know the election that happened in that November, gray November, you know, I'm connecting the dots. Writing letters addressed to the fire sounds like when she was trying to do damage control in 2016, like with that Notes app post, the notorious, I'd like to be excluded from this narrative. But that was met with even more backlash. Like anything she was writing to try to fix it would just be put into this echo chamber, and like she was mocked, and it was just fueling the fire. The chorus says she was staring out an open window in winter, wondering if this pain would last forever. And the second verse says she's feeling unmoored in December. Now she's no longer gray, she's a little unhinged. Aren't we all? She's rewinding the tape, trying to figure out where it went wrong, but all it does is pause. This could reference the recorded phone call that leaked, without the part where Taylor's saying she was definitely not okay with being called a B, but that resurfaced later anyways. She said she was sending signals to be double-crossed. I think she knew something bad was going to happen to her, because once the full phone conversation had leaked, she said something like, I'm this close to overexposure. I don't know, you have that gut feeling sometimes. The first bridge that Justin sings is like questions of, God, can't this get any better? While Taylor sings the second bridge that when she was shipwrecked, she thought of her lover and he's what got her through. The people who truly matter are who she learned to prioritize. And the third chorus switches from the ideas of staring out a window, being barefoot outside in the cold, and then she's inside again in the third chorus and realizing this pain won't last forever. The whole song takes us on this journey where she realizes once she's been through the worst of it, she'll be okay and she'll see like the forest for the trees. I like how the song takes us through that, like she's staring at the window, then she's outside in the thick of the disaster, and then she comes back in and she's fine. So now she sees the forest for the trees. Okay, so the next song is one of the bonus track songs. So these two I've only listened to a few times because they just came out last night, and I just bought the CD last night because I wanted to listen to them, and she hadn't uploaded them yet, so I was like, okay, fine, I'll just buy the CD. I want to post this video, but the second I got home, she posted them. This song is basically about being frozen in time. Immediately after the breakup happens, you're fixated on that moment. The first verse, she talks about these things people do over time, breaking up, getting married, getting buried, and being born. Then in the second half of the verse, she switches it to inanimate objects, like matches burning, a match can't burn forever, or wages being earned over time, or lessons learned as you grow older. However, this character is still stuck in that moment in the past as all these things are happening around her. And then she paints this really detailed picture in the chorus about being stuck specifically at this restaurant with dim lighting and dust collecting in her hair. It's kind of like a forgotten doll almost. This also sets the scene of this restaurant being likely where the breakup happened. In the second verse, she says she's still 23 inside her fantasy. This could be about Taylor being 23 during the Red era. And this kind of heartbreak that this song's about is similar to the heartbreak that the entire Red album was about. I mean, I think that time in her life that inspired Red was probably, it really affected who she is today. And in the bridge, it's confirmed that this restaurant is the one she was at when the guy told her he met someone and this was the restaurant they broke up in, and she never left it. It's kind of ghosty. I've seen some people be like, oh, I feel like the song is from the perspective of a ghost. I think she's personifying herself as one. And it reminds me of the idea when someone dies and you turn their room into kind of a memorial where you don't touch anything and everything is just exactly how that person left it. Also, she mentions towards the end that she's sure he's got a wife now and kids and Christmas. And that's just a sad thing that's happening on this album, like all of these sad events happening during winter, like during the holidays. And you see that a lot on Evermore, like Christmas becomes not Christmas to the character. And that's so relevant today because like the holidays are not the holidays for us, like people losing their jobs, not getting to see their families. And it's annoying to see people during the holidays having a nice time while you've got it rough. It's kind of like in Champagne Problems when she says soon they'll have the nerve to deck the halls that we once walked through. Or in 'Tis the Damn Season, she sings the holidays linger like bad perfume. Or in Evermore, she sings Gray November or being unmoored in December. And she does that here by saying she's alone at this restaurant, possibly on Christmas, and he has just this whole family to celebrate with. And I think people relate to that idea of being alone during the holidays this year more than ever. And then the song ends by essentially saying she'll always be right where he left her if he ever wants her back. In this song, she also uses the chorus to apply to several different situations, like what she does in No Body, No Crime. First, I think it's cheating. I've only listened to the song a few times, but I think it's cheating. And then the second part of the first verse sounds like Carly Kloss, because they were best friends who looked alike, both tall with the same blonde haircut, and Taylor found out she was not a twin from your dreams. She was a crook who was caught when someone told Taylor that Carly was sharing information about Taylor's career to Scooter Braun. That was when I think they kind of just fell apart. In the chorus, she says there will be situations in life and you'll have this gut feeling. You'll know when it's time to leave. And you never know what opportunities lie ahead if you don't take the risk of leaving a certain situation. Like, yeah, it sounds nice to stick with what's familiar, but you just never know what greatness lies ahead. Then verse 4 and 5 is very much about Scott Borchetta. She says 15 years she spent begging and giving it her all and not getting anything in return, which is how long she spent with the Big Machine label, I'm pretty sure. And then he was wondering why he signed with a new label once their contract was over. And now he sits on his throne praying to his greed. He sacrificed their friendship to sell Taylor's masters for Taylor's entire net worth, I'm pretty sure. Like, yeah, Taylor's rich, but she can't, that's her entire net worth that he was selling it for. Like, she couldn't have paid that. The label is who makes most of the profits. I love the line, he's got my past frozen behind glass, but I've got me. He's got all her old records and she doesn't have any control over them. But Taylor does have herself, and not only her future records, but she'll be able to re-record her old albums. And this line also reminds me of She Lost Him, But She Found Herself, and Somehow That Was Everything from 1989. Like, just that uplifting, but I've got me kind of, I don't know, I see parallels there. This song is just an uplifting one about kind of moving on and prioritizing yourself and your bright future. Whereas Evermore, as a closer, was more about seeing the forest for the trees, a recurring theme on Evermore as an album, and realizing that any pain will pass. They're both optimistic in their own ways and full of closure, which is usually how Taylor ends an album. So that is my analysis. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and let me know how you're interpreting these songs down below. My favorite part about posting these like theory analyses videos is seeing how you guys interpret them down in the comments. You guys are incredibly creative, so I will see you guys next week with probably a story time. One of you guys was requesting like more vlogs, more story time, so we're gonna do a story time, hopefully, probably. And the week after that will be my Evermore review. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye guys. I know that we